Welcome to Warehouse Women, a podcast where we talk about commercial real estate, building businesses, and passive income, but most importantly, turning barriers into strengths. So let's just jump into it. Roger, why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Okay, perfect. Yes, I have been a real estate investor for the last 8 years, and honestly, the ethos was more about creating different passive income streams for myself than anything else. My goal is to have 10 different passive income streams by the time I'm 45. So I've got a good 9 years left, and I have four passive income streams right now. So that was kind of the start of it. And specifically for real estate, love the, I'm all about the buy, finding the right opportunity. Every opportunity I've found was not my real estate agent, it was me. So it's kind of fun to do the on the boots, on the ground kind of due diligence, walk the neighborhood. And I specifically, just so you know, like the opportunity zone set of multifamily real estate.
Okay, thanks, Roger. Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. I go by Yas. Professionally, I work in tech and have been doing so for over a decade. And then after hours, I love to explore other projects. And over the last 2 years or so, I've been dabbling into real estate. I actually met Mahek at a professionals networking event, and we've become close friends since. Um, and through that journey of kind of shared some of the investments that I've made, actually invested in a fund with her, and then own an equity stake in a couple of commercial properties. But none of them are fully actively managed. It kind of ranges from completely passive to semi-active. And where I'm at now is I'm looking for, what's going to be my next own thing that I really want to lean into. I know this is perhaps a little bit more than just an intro, but the reason why we're chatting is Mahek was well aware of my passion around tiny homes and sustainability. And so she felt like you were the perfect person to connect to and have a conversation. So appreciate your time here today.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Actually, yes, can you go into your ideas and thoughts on the tiny home thing that you were telling me about, and kind of that idea that you had for yourself for the future? Like it was one potential opportunity for yourself, but do you mind going into that and how sustainability fit into that as well?
Yeah, certainly. And so to give you a little background, I'm also from the San Francisco Bay Area, aka sustainability is kind of at the forefront of a lot of decisions, from the goods that you purchase to how you live your life. There's just a greater focus on the impact that you have, and sustainability has always been really important to me growing up. And so one of the things that I've been interested in is, how do I marry this idea of promoting sustainability while driving potentially a retreat or getaway that gives folks an opportunity to relax, rest, pause. It could be in a personal setting or perhaps a corporate retreat setting. And it gives folks an opportunity to connect with the world around them and think about sustainability from a different lens. And so, broadly speaking, that is the vision. When I look at how I would actually execute on that, capital certainly isn't an issue. Time is probably the most limited asset, and then really figuring out what the best next steps are.
Very cool. And Roger, I know you have a few investments in that space. I think you mentioned four real estate properties. Do you want to give us a quick overview of what they are, and then maybe deep dive into one of them?
Yeah, perfect. I have two duplexes, one in San Francisco and one in right above the design district. It's called Buena Vista East. It's technically an opportunity zone. In San Francisco, I was looking for that happy middle ground of, call it, where um, Castro meets families. if you know San Francisco Bay Area. So that's the area I'm in, and it's nice and on a hill. And the upper unit is a 3 bedroom, 3 bath bi-level. So it's got beautiful views of San Francisco. It's my true like dream area that I want to live in, but I live in this world of trying to be uh, deferring my gratification, if you will. I know that through the compound effect, deferment of whether it's real estate or investment opportunities, it will allow me to get that much further uh, quicker, if you will. And so that basically the goal of the duplex in San Francisco rather than Miami was just to break even. So finally was able to do that about a year and a half ago, and did that by renting the top. The biggest issue with San Francisco is you really need to understand tenant landlord rights, because they are the exact opposite than anywhere else in the country. And basically, what you learn is you probably will never have more than one investment property in San Francisco, because you have to have the availability to push a tenant out via owner move-in, and you can't do that if the tenant is protected. So I digress there, but it makes it very hard to rent. So I found a loophole in the Airbnb market. So the lower unit is a junior 1 bedroom, and I wanted to keep it so that whenever I came home to San Francisco, hoping that it's available, I'd stay there. Um, but it's been renting so well via Airbnb. So basically, the loophole is if you can rent for over 30 days. In, in San Francisco, it's technically a short-term rental, and it's the one way around that circumnavigates the U.S. The San Francisco tenant landlord policies. I can't imagine it lasts too much longer, so we will see. In that case, I'll probably just rent long term and stay with friends or family when I go back there. But all in all, it's about 7,500 all in with insurance and taxes. Insurance has been crazy and has gone up, so that's always the next factor. But as of now, netting about $500, which was the goal. So happy with that. I call Miami my piggy bank because my timing was pretty impeccable. I honestly thought I bought in December 2020, and the Miami market really had not even begun its uptick from basically later 2021 till today. It's pretty much 2.5, 3x'd in a very, very, very short time. So I call it my piggy bank because I have 2.5x of actual availability via home equity line of credit for future purchases. And long story short, it's about $2,500 a month for both insurance and taxes in both units, and the upstairs tenant pays $3,000, and then I live downstairs for free. Um, and I bought a tiny house. And yeah, I'll have to show you that at some point in time because I'm actually sitting in it right now.
Oh, I would absolutely love a tour.
Yeah, I'll give you one at the end, and we can do it for everyone if you'd like. But basically, I've loved tiny houses for the last 10 years. I really wanted to just experience and have one. I thought I'd rent it out because of the cash flow situation here. It's able to work as my office. So that's what I'm using it for now. Realistically, conservatively, if I'm out of both of these places, I'm making an additional $6,000. So that's why I call it my piggy bank, because that's just to me. And from a non-cash out refinance purpose, it's some pretty nice cash flow considering I don't have to take any and refi it, considering I bought it at like a 2.78, 2.87% 30-year fixed rate. So those are my 4 units. And I guess I'll just add that I have the tiny house, and the one other piece that I have is I have 7.5 acres of land. It's in the Smoky Mountains, North Carolina. It's kind of the close enough where I can get there in a few hours, if you will, but also just like a dream. And I'm building tiny houses on it right now.
Oh,
Tell us more
wow.
about that dream, Roger.
Yeah, so I'm currently living the dream, but the tiny house dream is kind of, I've been in the finance business for over a decade as my main source of revenue. And what I've found is you can create anything if you put your mind to it, and if you have the right resources. And I've been in the ESG space along with opportunity zone space, and I kind of know what high net worth individuals are looking for from a tax efficiency standpoint. And I just want to combine all those things into potentially a tiny house fund and kind of become the like next gen RV park, if you will. So kind of similar, as to you in terms of like there could be a relaxed corporate retreat, call it kind of getting away from, a city within like an hour and a half. But it's also honestly for the, call it Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z population, who
Mhm.
realistically are going to have a very hard time procuring their own homes. And if they want a secondary home, it's going to be even harder. So give that from a tiny house community experience perspective.
That is awesome. I'm blown away that you took these dreams and you're making them a reality and executing upon it. So congrats.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
huge.
It's been a lot of fun. So
Um,
pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you as well. I'm curious, how did you go about determining where, like finding the right location, buying the right parcel, understanding what some of those restrictions are? Do you mind walking me through what that process was like for you?
Yeah, so I'll back it up even further. I found Miami and uh, during COVID because it was the first time in 10 years I could get out of the office. And when that happened, a long story short, I conned my wife into leaving our San Francisco like cottage, and we put all of our stuff in storage. And that the con is, I told her we could travel around the U.S. and stay in hotels, and it became let's travel around the U.S. in a tiny house, which became a van. So the van life is the experience I did during COVID, and in doing that, because I'm real estate minded, I was literally looking at real estate around America. Everywhere I was going, I was looking at real estate. So I found the Smoky Mountains probably like 4 months in. Just the Appalachian Trail is something I always wanted to kind of discover, and it's it had a lot of negative connotation in terms of really being a place that was more slummy and archaic and old, but it has the most beautiful, beautiful terrain. The Smoky Mountains are literally smoky in the morning. It looks like they're burning. It's pretty cool to see. And so I found that that brought me down towards Miami. The fact that Miami cash flowed is why I bought that duplex. It was a no-brainer. And then I grew up in spending a lot of time at a ranch in Hollister, California, if you know where that is. And basically, I really wanted that dream, not only for myself, but for my daughter. I have a 2.5 year old. So I was trying to make that a reality, and I didn't really know the southeastern side. So I naturally went back to North Carolina. And long story short, I have a buddy there, and he owns the 7.5 acres above me. And that's the main reason I bought, is because I'll have boots on the ground. I have a guy who wants to live on the land and who is a wonderful handyman and can literally copy anything. So he's copying the tiny house I'm sitting in right now, and we're recreating it in uh, North Carolina. It's a town called Murphy, and the tiny house I'm sitting in, brand new, was about $75,000. I bought it for 48.5 a year and a half later, and I can recreate it and build it. It's looking like 25, $30,000. So I'm really doing it for myself up front, but the idea kind of could be a corporate retreat or family retreats is what I was thinking of. And I'll end with the main reason I'm thinking of for myself for this one is because the opportunity set of the financial, uh, call it barriers to entry, are very cheap. I mean, you're talking about $125,000 all in for 5 or 6 tiny houses.
That is a steal, and you certainly hit the jackpot between having, someone on the ground that can support you and being able to recreate it, and then, of course, already finding the land and whatnot. I should probably share that I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, so very familiar with the area. You
Cool.
get so many tourists year round, so I'm pretty sure you'll have quite high occupancy as a result. I've personally been looking at North Georgia because I don't have that type of connection where I can have someone, kind of be responsible. And so wanted to look at places that were 90 to 120 minutes away that I could easily access if need be. And there's no shortage of land. I'm just curious if there are any issues around like, okay, you've selected a site. Obviously, certain cities have like restrictions and whatnot. But were there any other sort of, yellow flags or areas of consideration before you move forward with the parcel?
The hardest part, and not necessarily with the parcel. What I would say is it's making sure that you have just the basic necessities. The main other reason I bought the piece of land was it is the start of a natural spring. So I get the most creme de la creme water up top. Literally, we have a spigot out of it, and I can go up and drink the cleanest water, which I love to do every time I go there. But I think what I realized over the last few months is, I was thinking container houses. I really like the idea of, rebuilding what's already there. Container houses, especially in the woods, could be more sustainable for the long term, less overall maintenance. That was shot down mainly because you have to do the basic necessities of electricity, and you obviously need to make sure you need electricity, and then you need somewhere to put a septic tank. And when you do both of those things, you're going to have a natural surveyor come on the land, so you can't have a whole bunch of houses on there. So, yes, honestly, the way around it is build them on trailers and tiny houses because you can move them. So, the idea longer term is to like have a little structure around the tiny house. So you're kind of like pulling up into like a little outdoor patio, or I don't know, a hot tub, cold plunge, that kind of stuff for experience. But that's the way around it is it's on wheels.
Oh, okay. That makes a ton of sense. So there's no foundation, it's just on wheels and can be like moved around as needed.
Exactly.
I'm very intrigued and would love to see, how this all pans out. And if you have any renderings that you'd be willing to share, I'm just very curious to see what your vision entails.
Yeah, no, would love to. And again, the bigger vision is find the right partners, whether it's in a, like a RV park community. I've been reading a lot about different types of shared living spaces as well, which could be an idea for tiny houses. But there's no one kind of specializing in that area and in that industry. And I'm kind of using myself as the proof of concept. But yeah, as to your point, an hour and a half away from like a large city like Atlanta, on a river, kind of just giving that setting to get somewhere, be in nature, maybe even be disconnected, right? Not have Wi-Fi. Maybe there's a time every night, right? That you don't have that, and it's part of the overall experience. But creating a real life experience, if you will, for our generation, that could be accompanied with any ancillary from corporate retreats with cooks to yeah, a sommelier coming in with a chef. Maybe you have your own little side winery or brew, right? It doesn't necessarily matter, but trying to find key partners there and kind of build or create the first fund over like the next 2 or 3 years, and I'll have mine already built as proof of concept.
That is amazing. Definitely would be interested at that point when you roll that fund out. I couldn't agree more on the experiential component. And so, when we're looking at the experiences, especially like millennials, Gen Z, what they're craving, they want beyond that space to just go visit. They want this full experience, and the lodging is just a small component of it. And so, whether it is sustainability and some sort of like farming exercise, or perhaps you're doing yoga out in nature, whatever it is, to get folks out there. It may be that the activity is the driving factor, and staying there overnight um, is just like a part of it. I find that competing on a nightly rate is, it's a downhill battle, right? Everyone's willing to charge 10% less to drive their occupancy up. And that's not particularly a competition that I want to be in, because, margins are already slim. Airbnb is already so saturated. There's still opportunity there, don't get me wrong, but when you're competing on that and you have the cleaning fees and the maintenance, you're looking at a very small chunk of the pie left at the end of the day. And so instead of competing on price, how do we compete on value and experience, where you're able to charge a premium because of what you're delivering, not someone staying on a nightly basis? That's kind of the vision there too.
Well, love that, because then it's and again, I wonder the biggest like my break even cost is it's really relatively low. I don't know what the scalability break even cost might be, and that's the part that makes me a little bit nervous. Capital would be easy to raise. It's more of how can you scale it, create those one-off experiences, um, and there's literally so many different ways you could do it, and each one could be slightly different with a different specialty.
And
That's
I think, yeah, as you haven't mentioned this yet, so I'm going to throw it in there. She's amazing with design. So she has some
Ooh.
amazing thoughts, and her house is proof of concept, in my opinion, of just her skill with design. And I think she's some great experience ideas as well. But I just want to, sorry, continue.
Well,
Yeah.
I will definitely love to share any designs that you're willing to look at. That would be awesome. And again, what I'm really saying to you is it's all about finding the right operating partner. This is not something that I personally will operate. It's more of I have the vision and the network, and the funding potential to help with that. But to be very, very clear, I have a main job. I'm more of looking, and what I've realized for kind of creating those 10 passive income streams is it's all about finding the right operator.
And what does the right operator look like? Can you describe them for us?
Let's see. I would just say, I mean, number one, they have to be a problem solver, probably have some type of experience. It doesn't have to just be tiny houses. I think our RV experience would be wonderful, just because of the scalability and the recessionary proof concept behind it. Um, and honestly, just looking for someone to take that on as their main focus, right? Because I won't be able to. I would be maybe sweat equity and funding, and have the network and resources to bring them together. But what I'd truly love to do would be like have everything in house. The tiny house that I'm in, that I'm kind of copying the concept of, is a tiny house company by a gentleman who just did it as a hobby, right? So I'd love to even maybe procure his business so that you have a tiny house concept going in to that tiny house community, and you could create a couple iterations of it. And the reason is I've never seen a more dialed in 180 square feet of maximum utilization in any other tiny house. So you let me know and I can show it if you'd like. It's just a little, it is what it is. It's live right now if you want to see it.
Let's
Yeah,
do a
You want to
tour.
absolutely.
see
Yeah.
it? Perfect.
I think your
Okay.
blur background might be on, so just
Yep, exactly. Gonna take that off, but just so everyone can see. Um, Background. Perfect. Okay. Not cleaned at all. But this is the entrance. You walk in and you have literally the full setup. This is actually also an oven, but just the basics, old school fridge, kind of if you will, Airbnb'd out. And then on this side, just the rest of the kitchen overall. And the exciting part is I think this middle part here, because you can do whatever you want with it. If you were Airbnbing it out and you had a baby, you could take out the either one, probably the desk for a crib, but the few times that I've rented it out, it's more for professionals. So a stand-up desk, and after I did that, it became mine because it was such a good utilization of space. Uh, so the only thing I haven't quite figured out is this is a uh, this is a walkout right here. This actually opens up. So technically there shouldn't be anything here. But it has the expansion potential to have like the indoor outdoor. I love this little feature right here, which is you can have the sliding barn door here, and you can also have my work items here for whenever I have calls. And then full bathroom. Um, got the Camp Lux hot water heater, and all I really need is propane, and it's got a nice pressured shower. And then the best part, and why I think it's a good utilization of space and not at all cleaned, is there's one queen bed here, and then there is one queen bed over here. So literally every space is maximized, and all that's needed for a really hot day in Miami is that to cool the whole place down. So that's like the basics, and I don't know. I really like the background of just like when you sit down, it's got a cool atmosphere, and everyone's always asking me where I am.
That is amazing and a lot packed in such a small square footage. I'm curious if you'd be willing to show us the outside as well.
Yeah.
And is this one on a foundation or also on wheels?
This is on wheels. And to your point,
I think we lost you audio wise.
Yeah, it's reconnect.
can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we can, yes.
That was weird. Got disconnected. Okay. So here, I'll give you the main reason it isn't rented out is because Miami has a long time for getting permits. So everyone does things illegally here. And I'm one of the few people that is trying to do it right. But I'll give you the idea of the concept. But basically, I'm just taking out these two ACs here, and I'm going to put a nice walkway here, and I'm going to basically cut off the rest of the house and put the ACs right here with some type of a coverage. And I have new fence coming, and I was able to put support beams under the new fence, and I'm just going to have basically a walk up kind of experience instead. And this is the opening door right here. And then basically you'll just walk around the side, and I'm going to put a barbecue over here and like a cold plunge over in the corner for like the experience part. So would love any ideas, ladies, if you have any there. But for right now, totally on wheels, and had an inspector come by and asked me if that was permanent, and I showed him the wheels. So
That's so
the,
smart.
thus far okay, but the what I'd really love to show you both at some time is how I got it there, which is I had it crane lifted over the house into the backyard.
Please tell me you have a video of that.
I do, I do. It was pretty crazy, and everyone watched.
That is great. Very cool. Um, Roger, we haven't gone into this aspect of it as much, but I know that like when you make that first fund, you were talking about this community service aspect of your vision, which I would love for you to share if you would like.
Yeah. I love the idea. Okay, I guess I'll back up. When I grew up, one summer, I went to visit my cousin in the south of France, and we went to it was kind of like the equivalent of a hotel, but it was just like a little community, and you each had like little hotel rooms, and there was central place for dining, and then like a central place with a soccer field, and like there was archery. There was all these different things out there. Of course, I didn't speak any French, but I'm like 12 or 13 years old, and I had such a blast walking around, meeting new people, and that kind of like community setting. And I honestly think since COVID, it is gone and we need to bring it back. And so the idea on the tiny house is having centralized areas where groups can gather. You know, it could be yoga, could be a cook, sommelier, it doesn't matter. There could be a different theme per week, but having a centralized area, and just to be clear, that I really have the vision that the tiny house would either like be on a river or a man-made lake or some type of a water feature, um, so that you can enjoy the space no matter so that you can be in the outdoors. But I think the key to that is be surrounded by the outdoors and not in a city. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I know Yaz has a green thumb and has a very large interest in gardening and Yaz, can you help out and take over? Because I think that your outdoor vision plus design can really help this community out. So what are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
certainly. So one of the things that started out as a COVID hobby was me testing out hydroponic gardening. I lived in the burbs for a little bit during COVID. However, my intention was to always be in town. I knew I wouldn't ever have a ton of land, at least for my primary home. And so I tested out growing different crops in a very small square footage. Um, and I've been doing that for 4 years now. It's impressive how much you can grow in such a small space. But even kind of fast forwarding, I actually stayed at an Airbnb that had an on-site garden where they were growing like watermelons, peppers, things of that sort, like low effort, low maintenance. And it was part of the experience. And I was like, well, I'm already interested in doing this as a hobby. It's very low effort. You typically have to maintain them once a week. You're looking at minutes, potentially 20 minutes or so, based off of like, it depends on the footprint, but um, and just like this experience that I had in person, I'm like, how do I marry the two without having to manage it? There's always that added dangling, you want to create experiences, but how do you minimize the overhead while amplifying the experience itself? And I found that, people are willing to pay a premium for things like an on-site garden or freshly grown produce, anything that connects you to nature and really amplifies the fact that you're in the outdoors.
Mhm.
Love that. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
homes plus tiny gardens is what I'm hearing. Um,
Yeah, and yes, you're also really saying that these are potential communities within cities that can kind of create the illusion of being outside of a city, if you will.
I mean, that is certainly an option. Actually, not too far from where I live, they built a tiny home community to drive home ownership for individuals where it may not have been possible. And so they essentially built these tiny container homes or so, very minimal square footage. And in the center of it, they had a community garden and whatnot. So there's an opportunity to do something of that sort. I think the challenge is looking at, landlord tenant laws. And that always gets a bit challenging because I've heard a lot of horror stories in the Atlanta area, even though hypothetically it would be a more landlord friendly state or region. Um, so kind of toying back and forth with like, how do you have a positive impact on the community? How do you marry these ideas of like the connection to nature, sustainability, and at the same time have a profitable, scalable avenue? And that gets quite challenging.
Totally. But I love that vision, and I'm definitely gonna have to talk to you more. And uh, I heard of a tiny house community in Orlando as well. So that's the big boots on the ground. I'd love to go start visiting tiny house communities because they are definitely popping up around the country. I think we all three of us need to do a road trip at some point. That
That would
sounds
be
great.
epic.
sounds like fun. And before we sign off here, I'd love to know what is one thing that you guys need or could use support with or resources for, so that if any podcast listeners are listening in and they want to, one, how do they connect with you if you want to put that out there? And two, um, how can they help you? So what is one thing that you guys need right now?
Well, I already found Yas for her added value, so I'm not looking for that anymore. But I would say it's, I mean, I really have you already for structure as well too. So what I'm trying to figure out is, can you marry socially responsible investing with opportunity zones that can be wrapped in a tax efficient wrapper? Because it hasn't really been created, right? So we're literally creating something new, but it gives a tax deferment to uh, really based on private wealth or ultra high net worth clients, because those are the only types of clients that would be able to defer millions of dollars and not need that money for 7 to 10 years. So I feel like that is a great way to get sticky money. And um, if you can wrap all those three things together, that's really the mega trends of the next couple of decades in the overall finance or financial alternatives market.
Okay, awesome. And an operating partner.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Yas, what about you?
I think Roger said it so well, and it's tough to go after that. In terms of what's next for me at this stage is really land acquisition and identifying the either builder that I would work with, or what sort of avenue am I going to go down the route of a container home? Am I going to go down the route of something on foundation? Kind of working through those. And in terms of what would be super helpful is additional experiences. If people have gone down this path, what has worked, what hasn't, especially in the North Georgia market.
And last thing, Yas, I'd love for you to put a plug in for your content. You are posting some gardening content, and I would love if you want to put a plug in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I am kicking off a YouTube channel called Spark Some Joy later this month to focus on some of my gardening hobbies, as well as how they can be recreated in small spaces with low effort.
Yas and Roger, thank you both so much for coming online and meeting each other for the first time on this podcast. I hope you two can continue to connect offline, and I look forward to our next podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, and I'll see you next week.